This is Tom Duty, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search for my site. This is from a friend's blog, Sonu. The past couple of days have been quite difficult for me to cope with the news reports following the Peshawar school attacks in Pakistan. The thought of what the kids might have gone through clearly puts me into a trauma. I read of kids who hid under the desks pretending to be dead, of those who ran for their lives, those who laid amidst their wounded and dead classmates and teachers. I was 7. Years back in the child who hid under the desk, dead in pretense. I was the child who froze at the sound of bullets and screams. I was the child who feared to walk to school. I was the child who looked at everybody with suspicion. And today, I'm the child who still can see the smoke of firing guns right in front of me as I write this. I still hear the gunshots resonating in my ears. This is something I wrote when I was 15 years old. In my father's diary, which I still treasure what it holds. I would like to produce it as it was word by word, voice of the 15-year-old me. I was 8 years old, alone at home when I heard gunfire for the first time. My parents were away for a meeting at a nearby school. The gunfire sounded to me like metal balls rolling in the corridor of my building. Just before I went to the window to see if it really were showering metal balls, I heard and felt a huge deafening blast, and a couple of seconds later, one side of my kitchen wall collapsed to the ground, coughing out a lot of dust, and then I was silenced all around for a moment. Or did I suffer from momentary deafness? I don't remember. I saw something run through the dust with a gun hanging under his right arm. He dragged me out of the room, pushed me into another room, and shut the door from outside. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew what I had to do in such circumstances: hide. I was never put to sleep with bedtime stories of the Tooth Fairy and Snow White. My mother always sat beside my bed and told me stories of survival. Those were instructions to execute in situations like these. I know where I was. I wasn't in my house. I gathered my sense, my sound of the bullet that fired and went under the bed. I realized I wasn't alone. It was dark under the bed, but I felt something really slippery and slimy stomping me from moving further inside. It was my best friend, classmate, and his mother hiding under the bed. She was holding him close, his hands tightly pressed on the back of his thighs. There was blood everywhere under the bed, enough blood to soak the bundle of dusty newspapers lying under the bed. She pulled me closer to her and comforted me like a mother. Her son was breathing hard, subconscious with the pain of his wounded leg. I could feel his breath on my face. She comforted me in her arms. From the distance of the corridor, I could hear boots approaching. They walked straight into the room where we were, throwing everything in the kitchen, looking for something I wasn't sure about. They searched for a while, and they got what they were looking for, a can of kerosene. Bring him in, one of them shouted to another. Another man, fully armed, came limping and dragging a teenager with a knife behind his back and threw the boy on the ground. They started kicking and stamping on him violently before they drenched him in half a can of kerosene. My friends mustered me in the silent and placed the palm of my right hand on my friend's wounded thigh. Before I thought of anything, she went out from under the bed and fell on her knees, begging for the boy's life. Like godless animals, they lit him alive and grabbed the woman by her hair and showed her the boy fighting for his life like a goldfish. Engulfed in flames, they laughed like barbarians. My sight started fading out, and slowly I passed out until unable to stand the smell of burning flesh and the smoke that filled the room. Something dragged me out by my hand. I was fully unconscious. My parents had come in an hour later after the situation settled down and took me home. The next morning, I woke up to see a lot of people from my school. Teachers and students and neighbors had gathered. I asked my mother, but she refused to explain. The clash between two groups of militants and the police had taken toll over many lives, including my best friend, neighbor, and classmate. He died of heavy blood loss in the hospital the previous night. I was shattered, broken, and wounded mentally. I have never felt or understood the pain of losing someone before. The consolation of words go less to explain such feelings of sorrow and anger. There lies my friend, cold and silent in a tiny coffin. The talkative, sporty friend was cold when I touched his head to bid him goodbye. The coffin was tiny but heavy. It was not just my friend who occupied the coffin. Along with him were dreams, a beautiful childhood, memories, innocent, hopes, future. I never wish to remember these moments, but it is in and out of my mind every time I read innocents being sacrificed by some criminals in the name of God and faith. My mind is stolen by a difficult past, the thought of losing someone dear, my childhood lost, my mind stolen, but how many more? This has been Tom Duty, middle-aged American, living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search for my site. Thank you for listening. Have a good day, good evening, or restful night's sleep. Ciao.